and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm here in, where am I today? Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, man. All right. Hey, I'm DJ Ross. Who knows where I am?
Where in the world is DJ Ross?
Ask myself every morning.
Right? Exactly.
Where are we today?
This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful life. Outline. Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, we're playing Resident Evil 6. Keeping up at night, DJ?
You knew it was coming.
Plus also playing Labyrinth City, Pierre the Maze Detective.
Yes. Checking in once again on the adventures of Pierre.
Pierre, le Maze Detective.
Ooh. Okay. Looking forward to hearing about that.
French games.
Is it actually French, or is it just a French guy? Or is it just a guy named Pierre? Who knows? Maybe he's not even French.
I don't think it's a French developer, but I believe it is based on a French thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The artist is Japanese. So, yeah, it's a multicultural effort here.
It's like, okay, we just lost it at this point.
Yeah, it's cool. It's people collaborating over the internet. I'm told that's an interesting thing people do now.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah. Yep. Have we reached the point where we have video games sort of assembled entirely on Zoom? Probably.
Well, I don't know if they'd be like live on Zoom as they're doing it, but there have certainly been... there was one just from a few years ago where the entire team was remote. It's not... I'm not able to recall it.
Yeah.
Instantly. But, how could that not be a thing?
Yeah. I suspect the video game industry didn't need a pandemic to be able to do their jobs that way.
Yeah, I want to say it was like... I don't think it was like Valheim, but it was some like very high-profile indie game done entirely remote.
Ah, cool.
Probably more than one. Probably just many.
Oh, undoubtedly, but yeah. Asking questions neither of us know the answer to, though.
Man. I know we like to start the show out on kind of a light note normally, but we have some heavy stuff to get through this week, I think. So I apologize beforehand. This episode, I think we need to finally get into it. We need to have the grudge match of the century. 3 consoles enter, 1 console leaves. Of course, I'm talking about the Switch OLED versus the Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, versus the Switch Pro.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what's the third one? Because I couldn't remember what the third one was.
No, everybody forgets that, the Switch OLED, very distracting. There's Switch Pro. Can't leave that one out.
Well, yeah, so since the last time we did this, both of those things have sort of, well, 2 of those 3 things have become a reality. We were sort of anticipating a Switch Pro, which didn't quite manifest. There was a Switch OLED instead.
Yeah, was not what we were expecting.
Yeah. It's a Switch with a nicer screen and nothing else. Kickstand. Wait a minute. It's got a better kickstand.
Yeah, it's got a kickstand. It's got better speakers.
Does it?
It's got different speakers.
Okay.
It's got that weird new dock with the Ethernet port.
Correct. Yeah, and the glowy little icon on the front. Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing.
So there's new stuff in there.
It's not in there. Controllers that don't
I was going to say,
drift,
same old Joy-Cons somehow.
Yeah, same old Joy-Con. And none of the other things anybody sort of was anticipating from a new Switch, like 4K output or onboard streaming or, I don't know, what else? What else is on that list?
Can I just say, before we get into it, I am so close to buying a pair of those like ridiculous like Pro Joy-Cons. Have you seen these where it's like somebody cut a full-size controller in half and turned them into Joy-Cons?
I have seen those, yes, yeah.
Because I've been trying to play like River City Girls in handheld mode, and just like any game in handheld mode, really, and I hate it. Like, I hate the Joy-Cons so much. It's a good idea, they're just not well done.
I bought a thing for my Switch Lite that's like a little grippy thing that has more kind of substantial bumps that your hands kind of curve around to hold the two ends of it. And it is much less painful, I have found, than trying to hold, the same old Switch Joy-Con assembly.
I think it's like part of it's that, part of it is just the placement of the Joy-Cons the controls on the Joy-Cons is weird when you're playing in handheld mode. It just makes the whole thing feel much heavier than it should be. Just very awkward.
Gotcha.
But anyway, what were we expecting to be in the Switch? We weren't expecting a Switch OLED. What were we expecting to be in the new Switch model? So you said 4K.
4K. I still can't believe that there isn't a Nintendo device that has like a share button that allows you to go directly to Twitch or whatever from the device, like the PlayStation and the Xbox
like
have done for
built-in streaming.
for 2 generations in a row now. Yeah, those are kind of the only 2 things that I felt like that would be the pro or big more onboard storage, but Nintendo's never going to go that way. They're all about you.
They did for the OLED.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I missed that detail. That's exciting.
I mean, it's not a huge amount, I don't think.
Yeah. What was the original? Like 32, right? And this one's 64?
That sounds about right. Yeah, okay. Those are 2 numbers.
All right, double the storage.
Yeah. I just have a memory card anyway, so it doesn't really affect me. In fact, none of these things are particularly appealing to me because they all seem to be geared towards handheld players, and I play mine docked 90% of the time.
Except for River City Girls, apparently.
Yeah, unless I'm complaining about not being able to play River City Girls.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, it just doesn't feel very pro. It just doesn't feel like,
Well, because it's not pro.
Yeah, a big next version of the Switch. It certainly isn't a Switch 2. It's barely a Switch 1.5. So, unlike the Switch Lite, it actually switches, so you could put it in a dock and put it on your television. So that's, maybe not a step forward, but at least it's sort of consistent with the Switch branding.
Right. It feels like less of an upgrade than, we had the new Nintendo 3DS, we had the DSi, just speaking of sort of mid-generation updates. But this is, I don't know, kind of unprecedented for Nintendo.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what the motivation behind this thing was, or why, so many rumors, so many people were just so certain there was going to be some pro with all kinds of new, like, future tech built into it, and it just did not manifest.
Yeah. So, on one hand, I'm, like, kind of relieved because when there were still rumors that there was going to be the actual Switch Pro, I was getting all paranoid, like... Oh, do I want one? Probably. Am I going to be able to pre-order one with how much of a disaster like PlayStation 5 and Xbox and, the new graphics cards have been? I was getting a little stressed out about it. But this one, I am relieved that I will probably not be pursuing one.
Don't need it. Yeah, I
don't need.
Yeah. I had a moment where I thought, well... I've generally been sort of dissatisfied with my Switch Lite. It took multiple repairs to be able to get one that was functional, consistently functional, and I sort of feel like the new one they sent me is not quite working right either.
It's just a time bomb, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I kind of want to do something about it before my extended warranty runs out again and they won't swap it for me anymore. So yeah, I was kind of feeling like maybe I would... just stop trying to get a Switch Lite that is actually functional and maybe do this OLED thing and use it as my handheld. Because there's really no point in docking this thing because you get no upgrade when you dock it. The upgrade to the OLED is really only visible if you're actually playing it in handheld.
Right.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe this would be the way to go. I don't get the size of the light, but at least hopefully I would get, consistent controllers and a nice screen.
Yeah, I mean, at least it'll be easier to swap out those Joy-Cons when they break.
Right, exactly. And I don't have to send the whole unit back to Nintendo to be repaired.
Yeah.
Although there's a thing going around the internet this week that you can, with a little piece of cardboard, you could stop your controllers from drifting. So.
Oh, really? Is this like, It feels like every few months, it's like, oh, we found a way to fix it. All you have to do is just open up your controllers and be an electrical engineer and problem solved.
You're comfortable with soldering, right?
Right.
I am not, for the record, so I don't know. I imagine you're not soldering
though.
Cardboard, but what if I was? I don't know.
Just think of all those Joy-Cons you could be fixing.
Could be, yeah. When I lived in upstate New York, and the PlayStation 3 had issues. What did they have? The PlayStation had like the yellow light of death, right? Wasn't that the PlayStation thing? And it was like a heatsink problem. There was something inside that would get jiggly over time, and it would shut down your PlayStation. There was a woman who lived in my apartment complex who, I don't know what her day trade was, but had a whole cottage industry set up at night where she was repairing PlayStation 3s for people for like $60.
Nice.
And she would crack them open and resolder your heat sinks, or I don't even know if that's proper terminology, but she would do something magical inside. And yeah, my original PS3 fatty had to go through that probably 2 or 3 times. But it was nice to have her right in the complex. I could just haul that big baby over to her and she would fix it for me in a day or two. So yeah, there's a whole cottage industry of people, fixing electronic devices that, these giant corporations can't seem to fix themselves.
Yeah, I can only imagine how many people are just raking it in, doing, aftermarket Joy-Con repair.
Right. You would think there'd be kiosks in the mall, like,
next to the little cell phone light stand.
Yeah, the people who put new screens on your iPhone for you. Yeah, exactly. The industrial hairdryer.
Well,
it might be the same person, probably.
Just moving to the next opportunity.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, I think the Switch OLED is a bit of a bummer. Although, listen, OLED screens are nice. When the Vita, right, had an OLED and then didn't in future editions, it was definitely, in my opinion, a downgrade. So there's something to be said for an OLED screen. But
sure. Again, though, I definitely don't play mine enough in handheld to appreciate it.
If you're not taking yours on, airplanes and bus rides and hotel rooms and things like that, then you're primarily docking it and playing it on your television. Where's the upgrade? What's the reason for doing this thing?
Right. Plus, I was saying, the 10% of the time I do play my Switch in handheld mode, it's getting ready for bed or getting ready to go to sleep. Which, honestly, I shouldn't be doing that because it's not healthy. But whenever I try and do that with the Vita,
doom scrolling on your phone like the rest of us.
No, I saved that for the mornings. I'll try and play something on the Vita, and the screen on that is so bright, even on the lowest setting. I'm just oh, this is too much. This is even worse than just playing video games, just playing things on a light bulb. So I don't know. Maybe that would actually make the experience worse.
Yeah,
it's very specific though.
And then just sort of add more, curiosity to the video game industry last week. Valve apparently is a hardware developer again. And
they dabble in it every once in a while.
I remember that controller and VR headset thing they were doing a couple years ago. But I think this had been previously announced, but nobody had really ever seen it the light of day with it. And there's the Steam Deck now, which looks very much like a Switch,
like a giant Switch.
Yeah, like a Switch Pro almost. With that runs Steam basically, and you can play some PC games on it and a lot of Linux games.
Right. I'm still not totally clear on just the support. How comprehensive it is if all your Steam games are going to run on it. But I feel like that is sort of the goal. Yeah.
Well, because it's tinkerable, right? I mean, they're saying that you can install Windows on this should you choose to. And that should, I think somebody on the, probably a lot of people on the internet had, posited that this basically is a portable Xbox if you do that. Because you will have access to all kinds of Xbox games.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people excited about it, not necessarily because they want to play Steam games on it, but because they can crack it open and put emulators or whatever, so they can play all their classic games on here.
Yeah,
which seems like it should be pretty capable.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of devices that do that already. There's all kind of
sure
Raspberry Pi toys and stuff like that run emulation just fine.
But never, or maybe very rarely, in this sort of form factor, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah. Because, I mean, the form factor is clearly heavily inspired by what we sort of consider to be portable devices now, the Switch. It looks, exactly like a Switch, although much uglier and weirder looking.
It's a little uglier. Notably, though, it does not have detachable controllers, which I don't know, plus or minus whether you're really into Joy-Cons.
But it has sort of very kind of like detailed controllers. It has like multiple shoulder buttons, which the Switch has as well.
It's got those back paddles. It's got those got the little weird touchpad things.
The trackpads, right? Like, which I think are a carryover from the Steam controller.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me.
But all that stuff sort of rides very high because they're trying to cram a lot of buttons into a relatively small space. So it all feels like it's like, in the northern hemisphere of the device. And I'm like, I don't know how you hold this. Whose fingers are that shape? It seems very strange.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I'm most wary about the Steam Deck, is just the controls. Because first of all, I did not enjoy the Steam controller. I know it's very popular with some people, but just didn't do it for me. Yeah, I just didn't think the buttons or the sticks were very ergonomical. Didn't really play a lot of games that took full advantage of the touchpads. Maybe I feel like that's where I was missing out, if anything, because people seem to really enjoy just the touchpad functionality. But looking at the controls on this thing, like, okay, it's got the touchpads again. I guess that'll be good because it's a little more like the fact that it's going to be on every single unit maybe means that I don't know if it's like a developer specific thing, but basically everybody who has one will be able to try them out or customize them.
And since you're sort of running a version of Steam, I think presumably it would take the place of having access to a mouse or a touchpad on a laptop.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you look at the control pad and the buttons, and like you said, they're like way up there. The buttons, like the face buttons, look like they're almost falling off the side of the device, which it's weird to look at. You want to look at it and be like, okay, so I'm sure they've tested this thing. I'm sure normal humans are able to hold one of these and use the buttons. Otherwise, they would not put it out in this state. But it just looks very weird to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That was kind of my first, not knowing what it was. It just started popping up in kind of news stories late last week and, sort of accompanied by a photo of the thing. And I was like, what is this ugly piece of shit?
Yeah. It's like the PlayStation 3, boomerang controller.
Yeah.
Where you're like, that's weird, but you want to believe that they wouldn't just put out a bad controller.
Yeah. I mean, I do want to believe that, exactly. So,
right. So give the benefit of the doubt, but
you're not wrong.
It's hard to help but feel a little worried, I guess.
It does have the thing that the Switch lacks, which is sort of an ergonomic kind of grippy shape to it. So it is a little more, where the Switch looks a little bit more like a slate, where it's just sort of like kind of one surface.
Yeah.
The back of the Steam Deck is sort of, curled, so your palms kind of fit around it without having to, buy a weird cage to put over your device, like I mentioned, to make it ergonomic for you. I guess in that sense, it does look like it's sort of made to be held by human hands.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. They did show a lot of people holding it, which is reassuring. But also, you can just put it in a dock if you feel like. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay. That's very familiar to me.
Yeah. And it's just a Steam box at that point. It really just sort of runs Steam games on your TV.
Yeah. So that's the other thing, sort of like, when I saw these, first I couldn't believe they were real. I looked at the prices, and I thought, well, this is actually, it's a little pricey compared to a Switch. But having, like, a kind of Steam-capable PC device in this handheld form factor could be interesting.
Yeah.
But then I thought, there's the controls, and also how is it actually going to perform? Because, how could you get a full-size gaming PC into this tiny little thing?
Yeah.
And they show people playing. I think the most impressive thing I saw people, I saw it running, was that Star Wars game that came out a couple of years ago that lost. Oh man, what was it called? Star Wars Jedi something subtitle. But it looked very good.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah, I mean, on the low end, this thing is $400. On the higher end, it's somewhere over 600, right?
Yeah. And the most it's mostly just a difference in onboard storage at those different price points.
Yeah.
So I think they've been very clear in saying that you buy the cheapest one, it's going to run games exactly the same as the high end one. But I feel like, you really want to max out the storage as much as you can with this thing. I mean, depending on the types of games you want to play. Like, I don't even think you could download Call of Duty Warzone onto this thing. Oh, wait, no, it's quite large at this point. I don't remember how much space it actually requires, but it's a lot.
But it has room for a memory card. You can pop a memory card in it too, so
That's true.
Bound by the onboard storage.
Right. People were saying that performance-wise, it's comparable to like an Xbox Series X when in handheld mode, because the screen resolution is actually fairly low compared to what you'd be playing an Xbox Series X on, probably. I think it's like 800p.
Oh, gotcha.
Which is like, okay, so yeah, obviously you're going to get a nice performance bump. But then I wonder, what is it going to be like if you dock it and then plug that into your 4K TV or even your 1080p TV? Like, what is that going to look like?
Right.
So I'm curious about that. I'm like, that's what's kind of keeping me from, hitting the pre-order button. That plus the weird hardware, like the controls specifically. But I feel like if you don't have a gaming PC and you like to play PC games, or maybe you just have a Steam account that has a bunch of stuff on it, that you haven't really been able to access, this seems like a pretty safe thing.
Yeah, and that's sort of the perspective I'm taking on, is that I don't really have a machine that I can run PC games on, and I do feel sometimes occasionally sort of left out of the experience of being able to play some game that doesn't launch across all the consoles as well, and is, walled off in the Steam world somewhere, that, this would give me the option of being able to play that. I mean, just about any other sort of gaming experience I want to be portable, the Switch can do. So it would really just be sort of that selection of new games or games that are not multi-platform that I would feel the need to have a device to run them on. And I'm not about buying $1,000 laptop or whatever to be able to do it. So yeah. I don't know. The thing that I think keeps me out of, and I've talked about this before on the show, out of PC gaming is, sometimes they don't run, or you don't have like the proper configuration or the right video card or some other bullshit. So you with all intents, you go kind of like to launch a game and can't do it for a myriad of reasons. And then you have to spend, as you and I have done, trying to play games together sometimes on the PC, time sort of Googling the problem and how to fix it. And I like the simplicity of consoles being able to put in a cartridge or a disc and it plays the game for me. And I don't have to stress or worry about how to, be an engineer to fix those problems.
Right.
I would love some sort of guarantee of simplicity with this thing, but I suspect it's just going to be like, no, it's a PC that runs video games, and you're still going to have that sort of uncertainty sometimes. Although there does seem to be some sort of process for kind of like validating that games are Steam Deck compatible. And that should make that, hopefully, that wish and desire to be able to play a game on a handheld maybe a little clearer.
Yeah. I mean, just in PC games defense, I feel like they have gotten a lot better about just working the first time you start them up. Or at least, if not the first time, the second time, which is, welcome. A lot of console games don't even make that pass these days.
Enough of them to have sort of hundreds of stories like that, but I know maybe 3 times a year I attempt to play a PC game. It's always a little like, will it or won't it? Let's find out.
Yeah. No, I've definitely been there. So are you thinking of getting one of these things?
I already pre-ordered it.
Oh wow, okay. Amazing. You go for the level 3?
I went for the level 2. I went for the middle $500 something one, yeah.
I think honestly that's probably the one I would have done. I mean I really want the third one, but without having actually tried the hardware, I was like, that's just a lot of money to spend on one of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, it really is just storage. It's not going to run games better or anything like that. So, and I still would probably want to buy a dock for this thing so that I can actually beam these to my television.
Man, does it not include the dock?
It does not. No, the pre-order page actually says, hey, there's a dock too, and there's a picture of one. And we're going to announce more information on that at a later date.
Ooh, okay. I didn't catch that.
But I'm led to believe from that it is a thing you buy separately.
Yeah, well, hopefully they don't milk you too much on the extra dock then.
Yeah. We'll see.
Oh, well, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, it comes with a case, and it comes like on the higher end. It comes with like an exclusive keyboard theme or some shit like that. And I'm like, no, I don't need any of that. So I'll just take the middle one. Thank you.
Some of those, they had all the the different edition bonuses listed out, and I was reading through them, just trying to think like, how many of these are real things, and how many are like a theme for Steam or something like that.
A 3 kilobyte download. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the launch was a cluster, as sort of video game launches go at this point. Many people, including myself, can't seem to get a hold of an Xbox or a PlayStation 5 at this point. Valve launching a video game console also sort of fumbled it in a pretty significant way. There was a lot of reports of people not being able to get the thing they wanted to get. Right. In our own Discord, we had people trying to get a hold of these things and being turned away multiple times. I don't know. I've just 3 days after launch went to the pre-order page and all of the buttons were lit and it said pre-order now, and I went, all right, well, sure.
Oh wow,
why not? After I pre-ordered, it did tell me though that orders were being filled in the order received, and that because I ordered late, I would get mine sometime in Q2 of 2022.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be launched in Q4 2021. So I will have to wait a little while for mine, obviously.
Okay. Well, at least then you'll be able to get the early impressions.
Correct. Other people will have theirs in their hand. The internet will be flooded with people either praising or hating it. And then I can sort of make my choice because I've only put $5 down.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Huh. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. So I feel like this is sort of the best way to do it. I feel like I don't get it on day one, which, is kind of a bummer, but I'm learning to live with those kinds of things in my life. Other people can sort of be the test market for it, and I can get it perhaps after it's been patched and fixed a few rounds.
I wonder if you'll get this before you get a PS5.
I don't. God, I hope not. Geez, I hope not, because Ratchet & Clank is already out and calling me, and Deathloop comes in September, and I need both of those in my life. So I have to have a PS5 at some point.
Do you, though?
I mean, not that there is a shortage of video games for me to play, but there are two specifically that I can't play until I have a PS5. So no others. So, the Sony will have to get on solving that problem, obviously. But I definitely want to play those two games.
Right. Okay, which brings us to Switch Pro. Where is it? What happened? Is it still happening? I feel like the OLED Switch has kind of thrown this more into question. Based on all the rumors, it sounded like almost a sure thing.
It would then be a fourth version of the Switch, right? I mean, there's the OG Switch. There's the Switch Lite. There is now the Switch OLED. Is there room for a Switch Pro in that lineup? Is there like a $500 Switch on the horizon? Are they going for tiers on this thing?
I feel like by announcing this and having it come out when it's coming out, which is like in the fall, right? It's coming out around Metroid.
Yeah, October, I think. Yeah.
That maybe they just won't do a Switch Pro. I mean, it would feel. I think it would be kind of bad if a bunch of people run out and buy this thing, and then a year later they come out with a fancy new model that is like clearly like a hardware upgrade over this OLED.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's not a good customer experience.
Not at all. No, that would not be a good thing. That would be like putting out a handheld device and then 6 months later dropping the price by over $100.
Oh man, the Switch OLED ambassador program is already in the planning stages.
For those who don't get my reference, that's exactly what Nintendo did with the 3DS after launch. So, those of us who bought it on day one were a little salty about it.
In their defense, nobody was buying the 3DS at that point, which is a problem they were trying to solve. But
except for dummies like
still
me.
Not good.
So,
Still not good. Yeah.
Yep.
Steam Deck ambassador program. Watch out.
So yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I like just because I can't see them coming out with two models of this thing that close together. But it's also kind of a bummer because I'm just thinking about how badly that Zelda Age of Calamity ran on the regular Switch, and I'm just like, oh, it's going to be real sad playing Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever it's going to be called on this same spec. It's just going to be very slow and clunky.
Breath of the Wild 1 ran just fine.
It did run great, but it definitely ran better than that Age of Calamity.
Yeah, and it ran better docked than it did handheld. But again, I don't know who's playing. Somebody inevitably is playing Breath of the Wild entirely handheld.
Right. I mean, I did, but I just kind of assumed they would want kind of when they come out with their next big flagship game, it would be great if they had this little performance boost option in the form of the Switch Pro.
Yeah.
That they could sell alongside it. But no, they've opted to go for the Metroid route with a slightly better screen.
Yeah. I mean, it would certainly, if you did it day and date with a Breath of the Wild 2, it would certainly sell sub-consoles. But, yeah. There are theories on the internet. There are always theories on the internet. And if you've lived through more than one election cycle, you know that to be true. That Nintendo had plans for a Switch Pro kind of queued up that had all kinds of new things happening. And because of the microconductor issue and the chip shortage and stuff like that that's kind of impacting the world at this point, they had to sort of backpedal and release this half-ass stopgap thing. I don't know. That would be a bummer if true. But yeah, I don't know what to do with that information. And if that means, do we sort of get to the other side of this issue and suddenly are flush with new Switch theories?
I could see that. I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
It almost makes me wonder if
Switch 2 at that point.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. I wonder if they just go to a Switch 2 at this point. Because what's the point in coming out with a Switch Pro? Next year with Zelda seems questionable. Do they even, what's the point of doing it the year after that? They should just, Switch will be 5 or 6 years old at that point. It sounds like it's time for a new one.
Yeah.
Could they do Switch 2 next year with Zelda? Would that be crazy?
I don't know. And we know, too, I mean, Nintendo doesn't necessarily subscribe to the 5-year cycle that most of the home consoles seem to go by, and the DS and the 3DS had very long lifespans. That's the word I'm looking for, and I don't know if they're sort of approaching this the same way.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because they've kind of combined their hardware and console, or handheld and console platforms. Right. But I feel like typically they would be pretty consistent. Maybe do 5 or 6 years between generations, right? Maybe less than that.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I guess the Wii was around for longer than that. Huh. I don't know, though. It's going to be kind of rough playing all those, late 2022, 2023 Switch games on this hardware from, 2017.
Yeah. I mean, I just think of all the hoops that a lot of these developers had to jump through to be able to sort of port games from the PS4 to the Switch.
Yeah.
And how much harder it's going to be to port PS5 games to the Switch.
Yeah.
The next Doom is probably going to be a PS5 exclusive. And it's probably not going to make its way to the, to the Switch easily anyways. I think generally people consider it a minor kind of technological miracle that both the other modern Doom games have been made into Switch games with minimal sort of concessions made.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like, I forget what game it was. It came out recently. It was is there a new Ys game out? Or I forget the other. It was some recent JRPG that's also on PS4, but just seeing footage of the Switch version is very painful. It's just oh no. It's not just Zelda. Other games out there are desperate for this hardware refresh.
Right. So
I don't know. I feel like between these three,
who won? Yeah.
I still want my just platonic ideal of the Switch Pro to. I still want that to be the one I'm going with, but it doesn't exist. Maybe Nintendo will just go insane and release it anyway next year alongside Zelda. That would be my ideal scenario. But seems unlikely at this point.
Yeah. I mean, unless they've got a plan for the Breath of the Wild 2 to launch on the Switch 2. And that's coming next year.
Yeah.
In which case that would be slightly crazy as well, because this thing doesn't come out until... The OLED doesn't come out until October. So yeah, if Switch 2 is like, let's say March of 2022, then the Switch OLED is 5 months old at that point.
Oh, I don't think it would. I mean, I feel like it would be late 2022 at the earliest, even if they were going to do that. I don't think they do it like 4 months apart, right?
I don't know. Who knows?
How long was the new 3DS around? Like, when did that come out? Was that... 3DS was like 2013? 2012? Oh, 2011, right. I think.
I don't know. I can't chart the history of that in my brain. I'm not sure.
Anyway, I don't know. I'm just trying to get some reference point for how often they
gunked that up too with various models of the 2DS and stuff like that as well. So I was like, I can't keep up with you, Nintendo, on this stuff. So they're clearly not afraid to sort of iterate.
I wonder if we will just get some like bonkers weird version of the Switch, sort of in line with that weird 2DS like slate.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
Clearly, you've chosen Steam Deck out of these things. I will continue to hold on to my dream of the Switch Pro happening.
Yeah, I mean, if the Pro was real, I don't know. I don't necessarily need 4K. I think I need a Switch that sort of runs a little better.
I don't need 4K either. I don't even have a 4K screen. I just want things to run nicely.
Yeah. And that hope has been dashed for the short term.
Yeah. It's like whenever I go and try and buy a new phone, it's like, I know I don't need these fancy cameras. I don't need to be like sending people 4K selfie videos of myself. I just want, contrary to what you would think.
Sure, yeah. You're not updating TikTok on the hour in 4K.
Yeah. I just want the stuff I use my phone for to work better. That's all I want out of this new Switch.
Yeah, I back you on that. I agree.
Oh, well, that's settled, I guess.
I do have the Animal Crossing edition of the Switch, which has like a cool like Animal Crossing graphic on the back of it, and has light blue and light green Joy-Cons attached to it, and has a very kind of unique dock that has Tom Nook and Company on it. So I was like, oh man, if I get a Switch Pro, it's not going to have cool Animal Crossing stuff printed on it. So I would have to make the hard choice of like, do I get rid of the Animal Crossing Switch to get a Pro? And now I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, another problem solved.
Another problem solved. Nintendo just solving problems for me everywhere.
Although, in my search for replacement Joy-Cons, I noticed that there's so many people selling like off-brand Joy-Cons in those same Animal Crossing colors. Probably just for similar reasons.
Oh, really?
You want to replace the Joy-Cons in that thing, and you want something that's kind of in the same theme.
Right. Yeah. I know D-Brand like makes skins for them, so that if you do have to buy, just gray ones or whatever, you can at least keep the color scheme right.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think you'd be completely out of luck in that sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, we should transition to games we are playing now, and not in the magical future of video gaming.
Right. Not in Q2 2022.
Correct. Exactly. Resident Evil 6, DJ. How is it?
Resident Evil 6, it's here. I just can't stop playing these bad games, or supposedly bad games that people don't like.
So just for the records, for the listeners who maybe are not completely up to date, Resident Evil 4, one of your favorite video games of all time.
Oh yeah, the best.
Resident Evil 5.
Favorite Resident Evil.
Not great, but not as bad as maybe you had been led to believe.
Resident Evil 5, well, I had kind of a varying experience with that, where that was my initial impression, like, oh, this isn't terrible. And then it turned out it actually was terrible.
Okay, all right, good.
But Resident Evil 6, I feel like unanimously the least favorite Resident Evil game in the series, aside from, I haven't played every spin-off there is. But out of the mainline games, probably considered the worst. Mm-hmm. Did not play this one either when it came out for similar reasons. Like I wasn't into Resident Evil 5. This was just getting such bad press. I just thought, well, let's stay away from this.
Right.
But now it's the time.
Anyways. Yeah, exactly.
I'm on this weird Resident Evil kick for whatever reason. Just thought, how could it be worse than Resident Evil 5? I mean, I'm sure it could be worse, but whatever. We're going to do it. I've already got it downloaded, so we have to. And let me know if this sounds familiar. It's not terrible. It's not, maybe it's not as bad as they said. I'm having an okay time with it.
No. This episode is just a rerun. We've heard this before.
Yeah, I'm just, we save a little time when recording.
Right.
But no, it's not like, I played the demo of this. I didn't have an especially bad time. So, going into this with the lowest of expectations, I feel like maybe everything, is just going to be a positive. But it starts out appropriately with like this intro sequence where you're in a city that has been just overrun by zombies or whatever they're called at this point. And, cars are crashing everywhere, like helicopters are coming down and exploding everywhere. And you're playing as Leon Kennedy, the coolest video game character ever created. And just doing an onslaught of QuickTime events. Just so many QuickTime events.
I remember that as well, yes.
Completely forgot. Even just having played Resident Evil 5, I was just like, oh, yeah, they were still doing QuickTime events. So there's a lot of that. But then as soon as you get past this intro, like prologue thing, the game branches out into these 3 separate campaigns, which is actually very interesting to me. Not a lot of games, well, I can't think of many games anyway, that do this. And I think the idea is that each one plays a little bit differently. So you've got Leon and his partner. This is still like a fully designed to be played co-op. So you have the main character and then like a co-op character.
Gotcha.
And you have Leon, which seems like his campaign is like slightly more towards survival horror than the other campaigns, although it's really not. It's basically just an action game at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But you're kind of exploring these creepy environments. Like if you want to play a Resident Evil game and just immediately start in the back half of the game where you're already in like the creepy like science lab with all the tanks with like weird bioweapon experiments in them. Like, this is the game. It just immediately gets you into that section of it, which was interesting.
Cool.
And then there's this completely new character, Jake. And I'm having a difficult time sort of figuring out what his campaign is supposed to be like, because it's a little... Well, it's still a lot of action. It's not as creepy as Leon's campaign. The kind of notable thing about it is that there have been points where this huge monster shows up and starts pursuing you. Not exactly in like a Nemesis or a Mr. X kind of way, but it does make me wonder if the rest of the campaign, if that will just be a thing that happens where like you're being chased by somebody, which is kind of a cool callback to the like earlier games.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Chris Redfield's campaign, which is just Call of Duty. He starts with a squad of like these 4 like military guys from sort of the series lore, and he just has an assault rifle, and you are battling through, it looks like somewhere in China. I think it's probably the same sequence as or same time frame as the opening sequence, because it is just chaos and like zombie pandemonium in the city, but you just have a huge gun and so much ammunition. It's like playing a Gears of War game. There's just so much going on.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the Resident Evil where the zombies have machine guns, right?
Some of the zombies have guns this time. Why do they have guns?
Yeah.
I don't really understand. So these don't seem like the same zombies from Resident Evil 4 or 5. I think they're like a new type of zombie. They're very like fast and kind of like more capable than previous zombies. So yeah, like you're saying, some of them have guns. Some of them just seem like they act like normal people, or they'll be like going behind cover or whatever. A lot of them, I've noticed, will like leap at you, which is very weird. Like they'll be sort of shambling towards you, and then they'll just jump 20 feet and like take you down.
Ugh.
So it's very weird. It's very, very not the classic Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why people are very upset about this one. So people who thought maybe they were going to backtrack from the direction Resident Evil 4 and 5 were going in and maybe do a more classic version, that is not, it's nowhere to be seen here.
But you have, these are options, right? I mean, you kind of choose which path to go down. So there's some replayability here. And if you, yeah. And if you want the well, like you said, sort of the creepy science lab and the bioweapons, you could kind of choose path A. But if you want
I think the idea is
Call of Duty zombie mode.
Yeah, I think the idea is that you do all three, because I think they kind of intertwine at points, and I assume there's like one big ending that attempts to tie everything together.
Gotcha.
And if you're a real completionist, you can do all three and then play each one again as the co-op partner, because their route will be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But that was also another thing.
What's the third one? Did you say?
Oh, so it's Leon, Jake, the guys chasing you, and then Chris Redfield.
It's Mila Jovovich.
No, please.
No.
So I think it's interesting because when you start the game, when you choose one of these paths, it gives you the option to play as the co-op partner immediately, which is not something that they did in 5. That was a post-game unlock, which makes me wonder if there's going to be more divergence in the two characters' paths through each campaign. Although so far it mostly seems to boil down to they'll very frequently get separated, and one of them will have to take another path and kick a ladder down so the other one can climb up. So, not really sure how that's going to work out.
I've played this. I played this in its entirety with a co-op partner, and I have no memory of any of this. So it has, and I'm confident that I've played it. I'm fairly certain that was my last Resident Evil experience. I played up to 6 and nothing past that.
Uh-huh.
But you could just be describing some other video game I've never heard of before, because I'm getting nothing. It is jogging no memories for me.
I was gonna say so. Obviously, it was making Resident Evil fans very angry, but I think you would totally love this because it's just a third-person shooter, and I'm kind of into it because I don't really need the horror and survival stuff. I don't mind playing a stupid action game every once in a while. I mean, It's not the greatest action game. Feels like if you set out to do a third-person shooter from the beginning, you could do something much better than what they've put together here. But it's kind of interesting just to play this type of game as sort of familiar Resident Evil characters. I like Leon. I don't know how I feel about Chris. One of the characters. So the second character in Jake's campaign, actually, I'm super into, because it's Sherry Birkin, who, if you played Resident Evil 2, she was the little girl who showed up. I think you played as her briefly in one of the paths.
No.
But she was I don't know how old she was supposed to be then. But this is much later, and now she's just the smart-ass teenager who is, I guess, working for the government and sent to retrieve Jake from somewhere in Eastern Europe. It's very weird, but it's very cool seeing this character come back and be this totally different sort of presence on screen.
And calling back to Resident Evil 2 for the fans.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I don't know if maybe everything will just completely fall apart towards the end like Resident Evil 5 did, but going into this and treating it as just a stupid action game,
sure,
watching Leon do his kicks, it's kind of a good time. I mean, it's not the best game, but it's just a fun diversion.
Well, good. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, you're not so sort of emotionally invested into kind of this mental image of what a Resident Evil game should be, that you are able to sort of enjoy it for what it is, and that's a good thing. That's a nice way to approach video gaming, I think.
Yeah. Oh well, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I support your perspective on it.
The new Resident Evil, or Resident Evil 7 anyway, where people are like, "Oh man, it's the best." It's a return to form for Resident Evil. It's much more scary, much more of that survival horror feel. I'm like, oh, I don't want that at all.
And that doesn't sell it to you at all. Yeah, exactly.
I'll just play the stupid third-person shooter where everybody has tons of ammo and does the flip kicks all the time.
Yeah, and then I approach Gears of War the same way, and that people are like, oh, this is a good one. I'm like, they're all kind of the same game, guys. You're really just not a lot of variety there. Do you have a large gun and a sort of a behemoth of a co-op partner, and do you like you shoot giant aliens occasionally? Then yeah, I'm in. I'm there. Let's do this.
Yeah. So fully looking forward to next week when I come back and say, I was wrong. Here's 100 reasons why you should never play Resident Evil 6. But for now, I'm try and enjoy it. Try to continue enjoying it.
Well, good. Geez, I'm almost playing exactly the same game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, that if you asked me to describe Labyrinth City with Pierre the Maze Detective, I was like, oh, yeah, co-op third-person shooter, for sure.
Right. Yeah. With, hideous, deformed lab mutations.
Yeah.
No, not at all. In fact, this is much closer to a... the thing that sort of popped into my brain as I was playing is it sort of feels a little bit like a Professor Layton game meets Where's Waldo.
Yeah, I did get a little bit of Where's Waldo, just from looking at screenshots.
Yeah. If you're probably under the age of 30, you might not know who Where's Waldo is. Is that a fair statement?
Depressing.
So yeah, the Where's Waldo was a series of books that came out early 90s. Had to be early 90s, right?
That were mid-90s, sounds about right. Yeah,
probably around very dense hand-drawn artwork of lots of people in various circumstances. And there was one person named Waldo on the page who was a tiny little man, and they were all very tiny, in a white and red striped shirt and cap. And you had to it was a seek and find. You had to look through the picture of all of this stuff going on to sort of, use your eyes and your brain simultaneously to try to locate Waldo.
Where's Wally for anyone outside of the U.S.? In case this sounds eerily familiar, but the name sounds wrong.
The name's not right. That's why they change it elsewhere. So yeah, the Labyrinth City, Pierre the Maze Detective, is very much like that. So you have a series of screens where there's just a lot of stuff going on. So Act 1 of this is you are Pierre the Maze Detective. You are summoned to a museum where Mr. X, sort of a mustache twirling kind of comic book villain, has stolen something, and you are trying to track him down, but all chaos is going on in the museum caused by Mr. X. So you have to sort of navigate your way through the crowd of exhibits come to life, and museum patrons and people lining up to sort of find out what's happening, and so just onlookers and police and on, and just multiple pathways through the museum are blocked. So you have to essentially sort of solve the maze of getting through this chaos to be able to collect clues and find little hidden things occasionally by veering off the path a little bit, venturing into and out of different sort of exhibits and doors and stuff like that, which will pop you out someplace else. So there's a little bit of a mystery that goes on behind the scenes there. You'll get sort of myriad objectives where it's sort of like the museum director would like to see you. He's right over there. And the camera will pan just impossibly far away through hordes of chaos and crowds of people to a little guy somewhere far, far away sort of waving his hand, and a little Google Maps icon will pop up over his head, and that is your goal. That's your destination. So along the way, you are basically trying to sort of solve the maze, solve the puzzle of how do I get to that person. And he will go, hey, I need you to do, Pierre, is do this other thing, and go outside and go across the street to this other building. And you get outside, and again, all chaos has broken loose. Traffic in the streets, a marching band is parading by, and you are again sort of challenged with making your way through the chaos, solving the maze to get to the next objective. And the objectives continue to mount. The mazes get a little more chaotic and a little more sort of insane and head-scratchingly difficult the further you go. And always sort of Mr. X is inevitably just out of reach, somewhere in the corner, again, kind of twirling his mustache nefariously and taunting you before running on to the next objective where you have to chase him. It is kind of delightful. I don't know. I'm like, this is either going to be really annoying or super charming and kind of fun. And it really just sort of toes that line very carefully in the way that, you do kind of look at some of these scenes of just packed activity. All of it sort of hand-drawn, hand-colored. It looks just gorgeous, like a children's coloring book almost, or something like a Where's Waldo, where it's just sort of scenes of a lot of things happening, and you are trying to sort of sift through and find the minutia and the details buried in it. The game handles audio in a really unique way, where sort of the audio of Pierre in the maze is relative to the things around him. So you don't get kind of the cacophony of everything happening in the scene. You get just sort of like, as you run past kind of the marching band, you hear the marching band. And as you go past sort of in the museum, there's a statue of a lion that has come to life. And there are museum guards who have like chairs who are trying to sort of keep him at bay. So you hear sort of the lion roaring, and you hear the guards kind of yelling at him. But as you sort of drift away from that to move on to the next kind of chaotic thing happening, the audio kind of travels with you. And I think, again, just a very smart kind of programming thing has gone on there that allows you to kind of get a feel for everything that you're kind of encountering in this crazy maze, but never makes it feel super overwhelming or super noisy or chaotic.
So you more or less just doing mazes?
More or less, yeah. You're trying to sort of kind of cherry pick your way through a scene of utter craziness to find a pathway to solve your objectives, capture Mr. X, and be the hero, essentially.
Okay. Is there like kind of a Where's Waldo style search component taking place, or is it mostly just you're trying to find the path? Yeah,
there are a lot of sort of secondary objectives to this. There are 3 gold stars hidden in every level, and there are Mr. X will leave copies of his sort of, I think it's a manuscript or a manifesto or something behind, and those will always have kind of interesting clues on things that you can kind of interact with in the environment that don't appear to initially be interactable. So you'll find this little map that Mr. X has left, and it'll like point to like a painting of a blonde lady in a hat. So you have to sort of scour the image in front of on your screen to sort of find the right painting, and then make your way through the maze to that painting to hit it, to jiggle the painting, and something pops up from behind it. So there's lots of little hidden things kind of within it as well. So in the way that sort of Professor Layton, like everybody sort of challenges, like, oh, Mr. Layton, I can give you a clue that will help solve your mystery if you just solve this weird puzzle for me. And the puzzle is in no way sort of related to what you're trying to do. It just sort of seems like a strange detour. Everything in Labyrinth City thus far has sort of been contextual to kind of what is going on in the scene and to your chase. So it kind of feels like just a little fun piece of art that you're sort of discovering unusual and surprising little nuances to.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. It is a very cool thing, and it feels like, at no point are there zombies, you don't get guns, there's no fail states. It's not like, you've run out of clues, you're screwed forever. Now, there's nothing like that in this. It is very kind of low friction. The friction essentially comes from you making your way through the destination. And if you care about collecting all of those things, then those are there for you to kind of cherry pick and make your way through to. And of course, it gives you the little screen where it's sort of like, you found 1 of the 3 stars in this level, you found 2 of the 4 pages of Mr. X's manuscript. Yeah. So you're, if you're a collector-minded kind of person like I am when it comes to video games, that will haunt you. And you will want to make sure that you have jiggled every painting and interacted with every, member of the marching band to make sure that you find every clue and little, hidden nugget of stuff in this. But if you're really just sort of all about getting to the next objective and getting through the maze, then there is that for you to solve as well. Yeah. But it's gorgeous. That's the other thing I sort of want to emphasize. It's really just intricately designed, beautifully kind of colored and painted. There is the potential, I think, for this to kind of be just a muddy, overwhelming mess if handled poorly. And it's just beautifully done and really just sort of crafted with a level of sort of care and love, I think, for this world and this little mystery and these characters and stuff. Yeah, what a weird, pleasant surprise. This thing popped up on the Switch shop last week. I had never heard of it before. I'm not familiar with the source material, which apparently is a French children's book. It's just one of those things that sort of, Twitter was like, hey, this is really good. This is a weird surprise. Definitely check out this game. And I was kind of in the mood for a new indie thing this weekend, and I figured I would give it a shot. And I'm happy I did. It's really good.
Yeah, sounds like a nice kind of just simple puzzle game. Something you can relax to and not be pressured by zombies or whatever, or like a timer running out.
Yeah, there is nothing like that I've encountered thus far. There's no, and I'm not a big fan of unnecessary sort of like countdown clocks in video games, particularly in puzzle games, which I like to sort of consume at my own pace. There's nothing like that in this. It really, geez, if you wanted to play it with, a child in your family or something like that, then I think it's definitely something having an extra set of eyes would be beneficial. I tried beaming it to my big TV and kind of playing it that way in the living room, and I couldn't process it that way. I had to like have it in my hands and be able to kind of like pinch and zoom and stuff like that. So I think it uses a handheld screen and touch controls really deftly for you to be able to kind of get into the action and see where Pierre is in the maze.
Nice. You're playing this on the Switch?
I am. Yeah, I'm playing on the Switch.
Oh.
Yep. I believe it's on PC as well. Unless you have a Steam Deck already, maybe Switch is probably the way to go, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it would be so detached looking at it from across the room on a TV. It'd be nice to kind of just put your face right into it, like you're using a Where's Waldo book or whatever.
Right, exactly. You kind of want to you don't want to sort of view it like on a grand scale. You don't want to look at the whole map in one shot. You kind of want to process it by quadrants almost, and I think there's value in kind of having it in your hand and being able to kind of zoom up on it that way. One of the things that I sort of like about the game is that you can get Pierre at some point in the map. I think any point in the map, actually, if you hit one of the buttons, the shoulder button, I think he'll pull a little kind of magnifying glass out of his pocket, and the camera will sort of zoom in on where he is and his little eye looking through the magnifying glass. So again, if you're trying to sort of see, I just want to sort of see what's in the immediate vicinity of where I am without all of this craziness and distraction happening around. There's a little function inside that, Pierre will pull out the magnifying glass and allow you to kind of zoom in on his location to sort of see what's around you. But other than that, it is essentially kind of a one-button operation. There is one sort of button to interact with all of this stuff. You, of course, use the stick or the D-pad to be able to navigate the maze. And there's the button for the magnifying glass, but all the other buttons are turned off. So again, real low kind of barrier to entry here. If you have kind of an interest in solving the puzzle, then that's really kind of the only thing you're up against here.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's just an unusual and surprising kind of delightful little thing that popped up on the eShop. So I would recommend. This is called Labyrinth City. And it is subtitled Pierre the Maze Detective. I don't know if there will be future Pierre games or future Labyrinth City games. I'm not sure what the main title here is, but yeah, check this thing out.
Cool. It sounds like Pierre the Maze Detective was a series of books, and then this is like his first video game outing.
Ah, cool.
So who knows? Yeah, that leaves it wide open for sequels.
Yeah. I have to imagine something like this must be just sort of painstaking to assemble. There's got to be just
I wonder
a
if
small army of artists trying to pull this stuff together to make it into a video game.
Well, I wonder how they did the books, because depending on how those were illustrated, maybe it was very easy to convert them all into a video game. And I'm sure there's still some labor involved.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to sort of over-explain this to you, but obviously sort of books are very kind of static, and nothing about what Pierre is doing is static. Again, so once you get outside the museum, I mean, inside the museum it's chaotic as well, but you get out onto the street and just the scale of it is just staggering. And there's so much going on that you don't really know where to look. Because everything's kind of moving around, and so again, I think there's sort of if you're just sort of copying art over from the books, you have sort of the added responsibility and pressure of animating that stuff and kind of bringing it to life and make it feel a little bit less like you're reading a book and a little bit more like you're playing a video game. Yeah, it's cool. I like it.
Nice.
And it makes me want another Professor Layton game. What's Professor Layton up to?
Aren't they making another one? No?
I don't know. Are they? Did you hear that? I didn't hear that.
I may have been thinking about the Phoenix Wright game that's coming out soon. But it feels like we're due for another Professor Layton. Yeah. Although the last one wasn't that good, so maybe not. Who knows?
There was the one with his daughter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was not a great game, so I don't want more of those, but I'll take another kind of mainline Professor Layton game. Those were very much sort of a product of the 3DS, I think. That was, just so easy to consume with a stylus and a touchscreen. I don't know if something about the jump to the Switch left behind what kind of made that series appealing.
Well, the last one came out on the... or you're saying if one did come out on the Switch, it would
right, yeah.
kind of lose focus. Well...
The last one was mobile. I think the launch platform was cell phones. So,
yeah, well, that's right.
It was eventually adapted to the Switch.
Well, they still have time to figure something out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we wrap this thing up, right?
I think so. I think that's everything.
Good. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. Don't forget, you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join us on Discord as well. Hang out with us, chat about video games, chat about your stresses trying to pre-order a Steam Deck or a PS5, which it feels like we have a lot of stress about lately. You can get a link to that over at VGHangover.com as well. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on any place you can get a podcast, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. I don't know. Other places. There are definitely other places.
All those other great podcast places.
Tell your friends about the show. That's probably the more important part of this, please.
Yes, please do that. It really helps us spread the word. Bring in more listeners. Always very good.
Yeah.
I want to give a special thanks again to Hal Binerman, also known as Heavy Viper. For our intro and outro music this week, please head on over to heavyviper.bandcamp.com. Check out some more of his stuff. Man, I'm like 2/3 of the way through the one song a day per year album. The end is in sight.
Nice. So you're not consuming it one song a day. You're consuming multiple songs per day.
Oh, no. Well, they're not very long songs. I would be sad when it was over and I had to wait another 24 hours.
Just that anticipation, though. That's pretty exciting, right?
Right. It's like an advent calendar just for an entire year.
Just open a little door and there's a new chiptune song for you.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And a little piece of candy, maybe.
Ooh. Well, now you're talking.
Even better, yeah. All right, we'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.